Before dawn on a day that was supposed to be quiet, Iran's air defense systems fired. The target, according to the Iranian military, was an intruding reconnaissance drone detected over the country's southwestern airspace. The army said its integrated air defense network brought the aircraft down before the announcement was made public. Tehran is presenting the intercept as a demonstration of military readiness, but the details that followed the shootdown are what turned a single drone engagement into something much larger. Because the military did not just announce what it destroyed, it announced what it intends to do next. And the warning that came after the intercept was aimed not at the drone's operator, but at the countries that are watching this war from the sidelines and hoping they can stay there. Military spokesperson Mohammad Akraminia said Iran's targeting systems, radar coverage, and defense infrastructure have undergone major upgrades in recent months, which he said had sharply improved detection and response speed. The interception was carried out under what Iran calls its Joint Air Defense Command, a system Tehran claims keeps the country's airspace under constant layered surveillance. Akraminia also claimed that recent confrontations had exposed not only Iran's defensive strength, but also its expanding offensive reach. According to him, Iran's adversaries were ultimately forced into a ceasefire after failing to break what he called the steadfastness of Iranian forces. Those are claims, not independently verified facts. But the messaging is deliberate. Tehran is using each intercept to build a narrative that its air defenses are not just surviving the war, they are getting stronger inside it. The shootdown was not an isolated event. Iranian outlets, including Fars, have previously reported air defense activations over Tehran and other cities after suspected drone sightings, though many of those claims remain difficult to verify independently. Fars identified some of the drones as orbiter-type platforms, a claim that has not been independently confirmed. Iranian officials say both the regular army and the IRGC have intercepted dozens of drones in recent weeks, though outside verification remains limited. Taken together, the reports point to what Iran wants, framed as a persistent aerial contest over its airspace, with alleged surveillance probes being answered by active defense. Whether all the intercept claims are accurate or whether some involve friendly fire, decoys, or misidentified objects is impossible to verify from the outside. But the frequency of the reports tells its own story. Then came the shift from airspace to waterway. In remarks carried by IRNA, Akraminia cautioned that countries complying with US sanctions on Iran would encounter difficulties transiting the Strait of Hormuz. He said Iran has put in place what he called a new legal and security system for vessels crossing the waterway, requiring prior coordination with Iranian authorities. He claimed the measure is already in force and would yield economic, security, and political benefits for Iran. That statement connects the drone war in the skies to the shipping war at sea. Iran is telling the world that its military posture is not compartmentalized. What happens in Iranian airspace and what happens at Hormuz are part of the same response, and countries that support the pressure campaign against Tehran should expect to feel it on the water as well.
There's much confusion about Iran. We need to calm things down. I heard your question on deployment. There was never any question of a French or Franco-British deployment. A few days ago, I made the decision to shift the Charles de Gaulle, its escort frigates, and our entire carrier strike group beyond the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, moving from the eastern Mediterranean to the vicinity. There was never any question of a deployment, but we are standing ready. From the beginning, we have been saying one very simple thing: freedom of navigation. And all blockades, regardless of their source or nature, reject any tolls wherever they originate, and allow for freedom of navigation. We have never considered, and I invite you to review all my statements from day one, a deployment to reopen Hormuz. That has never been an option for France. We have established an ad hoc mission. We call this initiative, alongside our British partners, which brought together over 50 nations and international organizations to enable, in a concerted and collaborative manner with Iran, un anno, and by carefully deconflicting the entire matter with all the relevant countries in the region, as well as the United States, to guarantee, as soon as conditions permit, the full resumption of all maritime traffic and shipping routes for the transport of fertilizers, food supplies, natural gas, crude oil, and other essential commercial goods. I call on everyone to remain calm and responsible. I believe there is far too much inflammatory rhetoric, which always leads to physical escalation. The most vulnerable on the planet are the first victims, but today we are all victims of what is happening. Our fellow citizens in France are also paying the price every day for this war that we did not want. So today, we return to calm with priority given to the peaceful and coordinated reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and the resumption of responsible discussions on nuclear and ballistic issues within an appropriate framework. France is here to provide solutions in a respectful manner and within the framework of international law.
But the diplomatic picture became more complicated when France moved the Charles de Gaulle group south and Paris and London continued talks on a possible multinational Hormuz mission. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Gharibabadi responded with one of Tehran's sharpest warnings yet. In a statement posted on X, Gharibabadi argued that only Iran has the authority to maintain security in the Strait of Hormuz, and said Tehran would not tolerate interference by extra-regional powers. He accused Western powers of militarizing one of the world's most important energy corridors under the guise of protecting shipping routes. He also insisted the strait is not common property for foreign powers, but a sensitive regional waterway where Iran has sovereign rights under international law. France's position then became muddled. France said the Charles de Gaulle strike group was moving toward the southern Red Sea and Gulf of Aden as part of preparations that could support a future Hormuz mission, while Paris stressed this was not a unilateral move to reopen the strait by force. He said there was never any question of a Franco-British deployment and called on everyone to remain calm and responsible. He pointed to broader Franco-British talks involving around 50 countries on how maritime traffic through Hormuz might eventually resume under the right conditions. But the contradiction between moving a carrier strike group closer to the Gulf while denying any deployment intention is the kind of ambiguity that does not calm tensions, it raises them. And Tehran read it exactly that way. Gharibabadi's response was direct. He argued that countries supporting military pressure and blockades against Iran cannot claim to be acting as neutral guarantors of maritime security. He warned that Iran would not tolerate interference by extra-regional military forces near the strait. The language positions Iran as the custodian of Hormuz security, with any outside naval presence treated as hostile by default. Whether that posture is legally defensible under international maritime law is a separate question. What matters operationally is that Tehran has now publicly warned 2 European NATO members that approaching the strait with warships would be met with force. Step back and look at the sequence. A hostile drone shot down over southwestern Iran. Upgraded air defenses presented as proof of growing capability. Dozens of intercepts claimed in recent weeks, including drones identified as Israeli-made platforms. A military spokesperson tying the air defense campaign to warnings about Hormuz. A new transit system imposed on commercial shipping. A UN resolution drafted and already facing a Russian veto. France moving a carrier group closer while denying it is a deployment. And Iran warning European navies to stay away from the strait entirely. The drone that was shot down before dawn was a single aircraft. But what followed it was a cascade of signals that touched every dimension of the conflict at once. So this is where it stands. Iran says it shot down a reconnaissance drone and used the moment to deliver a message that goes far beyond air defense. The message is that the skies over Iran, the waters of Hormuz, the diplomatic floor at the UN, and the naval corridors near the Gulf are all part of the same confrontation. Tehran is not treating these as separate files. It is treating them as one front with multiple pressure points. Countries complying with sanctions are warned about their shipping. Countries sending warships are warned about the consequences. And countries drafting resolutions are being warned that Russia appears ready to block them if they reach a vote. The drone was the headline. Everything that came after it was the real story. Subscribe to WLA for daily geopolitical analysis.